Okay, it's another episode of Quackaholics Anonymous on May 10th, 2025, even though it feels more like early March outside. I don't know what's going on. I need a jacket in the morning. I don't need a jacket by mid-afternoon, and then I need a jacket and a long sleeve shirt and a sweater by evening time here lately with the up-down temperatures and the rain and everything. But I don't actually have the notes that I set aside for this week because, yeah, the printer didn't go on the fritz, but I actually didn't have any printer paper. I thought I had ordered some from Amazon, but it has not arrived yet, even though it was supposed to be here today. But with all the tariffs and trade wars going on, who knows? Anything's possible, even though I don't believe the paper itself is actually coming from China. But anyway, before I get started, like last time, and I want to make it known that I'm not intentionally leaving out other people on here when I do my brief shout outs at the beginning of videos. I won't be able to get a subscriber comment up this week because I don't have the paper. But the other content creators that are out here that talk about the 12-step cult religion, there is Sobriety Bestie, whose channel I'll put in the comment description below. There is the podcast with Emma called Groupthink. There is Burn the Stigma. There is also, I forgot to mention him the last time around, there's Bobby C, who has like deprogramming from, I had the name and I lost it, but I'll put it in the video description. As a matter of fact, Bobby reached out to me maybe a year or two ago about possibly doing an interview, and I just never know when I'm going to get a chance to do one of these videos, and I never know when I'm going to put one up. I mean, you see how it works even on my channel, every couple of weeks, a week, sometimes on Friday night, sometimes on Saturday, sometimes on Thursday night. It just kind of, the schedule is not set enough yet for me to do that, but I haven't forgotten about him. I haven't tuned into his channel recently, but I'll put a link to it below. I know there's interviews with some of the people I'm mentioning now. There's an interview with Burn the Stigma or Tara on there, and there's a couple of other different interviews, and also a certain writer on Amazon named Dan Joyce had reached out to me about wanting to do an interview, and I haven't had an opportunity, like I said, chaotic schedule, to do that, but he's written a book about his own experiences with AA, and I'll put a link for that in the description. If they don't appear right away, it's because sometimes I have to upload these videos, and then I have to go back and do all of that, and sometimes after I first put them up, it takes a little while for the content to allow me to do that. So if you don't see them right away, it doesn't mean they're not going to be up there. There's a couple of other people with YouTube channels, some of them who are subscribers of mine that talk about AA. There is a guy named, it's Darth Melker, or Melker, I don't mean to butcher your name there, but he talks about physical fitness and stuff, and also talks about AA in his videos. And like I had said before, way back when I started this, that I had hoped for a larger community of YouTubers who were talking about the 12-step cult religion. And there's probably others out there that I just haven't stumbled across yet. And if I'm leaving your name out, it's not because I'm willfully ignoring you. It's because I don't know, or because I'm forgetting right off the top of my head. Like I said, no printer paper, so I'm a little behind here. I have talked in the last few videos about literature, mainly from the 12 and 12 in the last couple of videos I've done, which is always funny to me because I always get that comment from somebody, you obviously never read the big book, even though I've talked about the big book on here quite a number of times, or, you obviously never worked a step. They always have to have some kind of way to rig it where it doesn't look like that you're the true alcoholic. Like one of the reviews for the US of AA book, when I looked online, the very first review, it said something like, the writer of this book said he didn't want to do the steps. So that tells me all I need to know about this book. I didn't even read this book after I saw that. And I was like, so you're practicing that contempt prior to investigation that you AA cult members like to throw at everybody, except you kind of rig the system all up to where if it's anything that's critical of the cult religion, you just don't want to read it, and contempt prior to investigation doesn't apply. It's oddly enough, the contempt prior to investigation comes from a social Darwinist writer named Herbert Spencer, but I don't want to get involved in that. That's another long video right there. But I did want to talk about something that I had kind of escaped me. It was right there underneath me the whole time that I've been doing this channel, and the whole time that I've been trying to expose all the irrational behavior and the toxic culture of AA is something that really has been plain as day, but it's eluded my attention until recently. There's the lady, and I don't think I mentioned her at the beginning, Thrive Alcohol Recovery, where she talks about naltrexone and the Sinclair method and, its success rates and everything. And there's always someone in one of her comments says, well, this doesn't apply to real alcoholics. This doesn't apply to people who are real alcoholics. Your program is dangerous. It kills people. I love it how AA people are always accusing people critical of their cult religion of killing people when they proudly sit in meetings and talk about some have to die so that others can live. Your program is in love with death. Your program threatens jails, institutions, and death. Your program's always talking about how people are dying. But if anybody says anything bad about it, it could kill people. Yeah. Added into the other endless contradictions that make up this cult religion. Now, before I totally dive into this, I do want to mention one thing. I've had people in the past who will tell me that if my message was maybe a little bit more polite, that if I wasn't so abrupt, if I didn't just swear so much, because swearing is so fucking bad for you, it's just shit to swear and all that other kind of thing, that maybe I would attract more people. I wanted to point out that somebody like the lady who does Thrive Alcohol Recovery doesn't bash AA, has never talked, to my knowledge, in any video of hers I've ever seen, is always very professional, is always very gracious, is always pretty much the opposite of someone like me, right? And she still gets comments like this one I saw not too long ago. There's a seat in AA waiting for you when you're ready. Right, because nobody can quit drinking without your cult religion, which is further proof that AA is not interested in people quitting drinking. It's interested in cult religion. But here's the thing that I've noticed, because you watch one video, you get more videos in your YouTube, and I've seen quite a number of her shorts here lately, but had to take a hit of this vape. This company ought to pay me to advertise this, because I had somebody ask about this not too long ago in terms of flavor. I could use extra help paying the bills. But anyway, she was talking about the different things that, the different reasons why people drink, which, by the way, none of them has nothing to do with something spiritual or anything like that. And, she was talking about the naltrexone that goes with the naltrexone. The Sinclair method that goes with naltrexone is what I meant to say, so I completely fucked that up in that sentence. It'd make a good clip if anyone wanted to make fun of me. But I started looking up a little bit about naltrexone and what it does to the brain itself, and what it does in terms of the actual science of it. Now, I don't have the notes in front of me to talk about receptors and all that other kind of thing, but a key to this puzzle was more revealed, right? Only in this case, it's not from a supernatural occurrence, it's through self-knowledge, the thing AA members hate. Came about when I was discussing with someone where I work who is currently on Ozempic, and they have lost over 30 pounds, but they were telling me, yes, I know there's side effects. Yeah, I know that, we haven't exactly hammered out how safe a drug is, because we have put drugs on the market before that we've had to recall, and all that other kind of thing. But they were talking about, to me, how their whole entire life, when they weren't miserable on a diet and starving themselves and depriving themselves and exercising themselves and doing all that other kind of stuff, which made them absolutely miserable, but their whole entire life, whether they were starving themselves in a diet or whether they were just binging with their food, they were miserable. As far as food cravings were concerned, they said I was on, they did the Slim Fast, they did the Jenny Craig, they were telling me about, they did the others, but they were saying that the one amazing thing they noticed about being on the drug Ozempic was that there was no food cravings any longer. What they were telling me is it's not so much the fact that I'm losing weight, which, maybe I could use a shot of this Ozempic here to drop about 10, 15 pounds, but they were saying the food cravings was gone. They had no interest in food any longer, that they were literally could walk down a store and walk by all their favorite things that they used to do, which involved chips and which involved candies and all those other kind of things. And they said it just doesn't mean anything, that they had to remind themselves to eat, actually, that it wasn't a big deal to prepare more healthy food, that it wasn't a big deal to prepare more healthy alternatives, that they were kind of trying to get out of the rut when it come to exercises, but that, it was just amazing how they didn't have a craving for anything any longer. And they even mentioned that they had canceled their DoorDash and Uber Eats accounts because fast food was no longer attracted to them anymore. And there was a little piece of the puzzle there. Tie that in with watching the lady talk about naltrexone and the Sinclair method. And I started reading a little bit about what naltrexone does to the brain, and I started reading a little bit more about what Ozempic does to the brain. Now, I know, inevitably, whenever you bring up a drug, like this vape that I'm going to hit again, because it's my higher power, whom I choose to call vape today, there is going to be a subsection of people that's going to say, well, it didn't work for me, it's not safe, and all those other things, and I'm not minimizing that. Sure, there are always risks involved when it comes to drugs. There is always a chance that the naltrexone, for example, for someone with a severe drinking problem, might not be the best option for them. Like, there are people who will take naltrexone and say, I didn't like this didn't do it for me. But it doesn't stop the research into these types of medications and what these medications ultimately do. See, the way that science advances in this kind of way, like, let's just say something happens tomorrow and they say, well, we got to take Ozempic off the market because it is bad for you. The one component in the medication that blocks the receptors in the brain, or at least, I don't think it blocks a receptor in the brain with Ozempic. I think it actually does something where it mimics a receptor. God, I wish I had my printer. I had all the scientific information right there for you. But that particular ability that medication can do, for example, they'll still continue to work on that. They'll still continue to work on alternatives to make it where it's better for people or where it's safer for people, etc. Like, for example, if you put out a medication on the market for heart medicine or diabetes medicine, like I got people in my family on metformin, for example, that had to get off metformin for their diabetes because it just didn't do well with them. Family member told me I was like this the whole time I was on metformin, so it didn't work for me. But just because there are medications that don't pan out for you doesn't necessarily mean that we should cease all medications for diabetics. We should cease all medications like naltrexone, or we should cease all Ozempic whatsoever. Metaphorically speaking, the cat has been let out of the bag, meaning we know that these receptors in the brain that fuel addiction or fuel overeating or whatever can be tricked, that there is an alternative, that there is a way to switch this off, which would kind of dispel the notion of the one camp that I've heard for years, alcoholism is just you being lazy and weak, no willpower whatsoever. Man the fuck up, pull on your boot straps. My boots don't have straps, so I don't know what I'm going to do in that situation. Just get some willpower, hit the gym, be an alpha male, be a gym bro, grow a Viking beard, and do push-ups. That's all that is weak, man, weak. All right, that's one particular camp, and then there's the other camp of the nutcase religious people, like I was tied up with for over a decade. Of you got to do it through God, the higher power you choose to call God, or whatever the fuck else they use. But if we come to the realization, for whatever reason, could be genetic, could be any number of environmental factors, could be anything, that there are hormones or receptors in the brains that maybe behave a little bit differently than everybody else, and that with medication these things can be treated, like naltrexone does for alcohol addiction or Ozempic does for people who are overeating. It was originally a diabetic drug, but they've found out, because you got others like it, like the semi-glutatione or whatever the fuck it's called, if it's something that's purely medical, and this is the crux of what the video is about, if it's something medical, then it's something that comes from within the brain. It's something to do with biology. It's something to do with our makeup. Like people who are born with certain conditions that, heart conditions, for example, or people who are, little children that get type 1 diabetes. They didn't do that because they weren't spiritually fit, or because they weren't eating unhealthy. They were eating unhealthy or something like that. It's literally just your biological makeup, which would kind of, to me, be a strong case that addiction, like alcohol abuse, alcohol use disorder, or anything like that, it's almost like it doesn't have anything to do with anything spiritual. Uh, because it's coming from within the brain itself. Now, I know what's going to happen. The AA people are going to come along and say, well, see, the people that naltrexone works for, those people are not real alcoholics. Well, congratulations. You've just made a statement that you have no way to demonstrate, no way to prove, no way to do anything with, because it's literally something that can't even be verified to actually exist. So when you say naltrexone doesn't work for real alcoholics, you might as well say Ozempic doesn't work for people who are real diabetics, because real diabetics have a spiritual deficiency, something you can't prove, something you can't demonstrate, something for which you have no evidence for. A lot of the times AA people fall for this fallacy of thinking that because I made a statement about something that cannot be disproven, that it therefore carries valid weight. You see, I could say there at the center of this universe is a dragon, and the dragon holds the universe together. And if anything happens to the dragon, the whole entire universe will go to shit. And I could say, and you can't disprove that, can you? No, you can't disprove that there's something at a center of the universe somewhere, because we don't even know if there is, and we don't know where a center of the universe might be. But at the same time, you don't have any reason to believe there is such a thing, do you? So if I say to you, well, you see, it doesn't work for the real alcoholics, I have no reason to take that seriously. There's no evidence whatsoever of such a thing as a real alcoholic versus a fake alcoholic. So yeah, you are engaging in the so-called not so-called, it is the no true Scotsman fallacy. You're also engaging, like I've said on here before, in a special pleading fallacy that the rules of reality, the rules of science, the rules of the world we live in, they don't apply to people who are alcoholics, which you have no evidence for, which you have no demonstration of. And besides that, if there is a spiritual solution to an addiction problem, then that would imply that the problem itself originates outside of the brain. I know there's that phony bunk attempt at science in the big book where it says, well, see, it's 2 parts physical and 1 part mental, and the rest 3/4 part of the 1/4 of the inch spiritual. Well, anybody can make an assertion. I can make an assertion that that there's a spiritual component to smoking. You know, like if you do this vape, but you're not smoking a cigarette, then you know that there is a spiritual component to doing this vape. That's not like a cigarette. That's a different form of smoking. And then someone says, can you provide evidence for that? Oh, well, when you know, you know. See, if your evidence is, I believe because I just choose to believe because the book told me that, that's not evidence. You don't have any evidence for that. But we have mountains of evidence based on people's biology, based on medications, based on scientific findings of how the brain works, because scientists still don't know everything there is to know about the brain works. But so far, we have zero evidence that there's a spiritual problem. Sobriety Bestie on her channel, I don't remember if it was a recent video or an older video, but she was talking about she was neurodivergent. And she was saying that some of the things that they were calling character defects and some of the things they were calling alcoholic traits, really, for her, in her own experience, were just traits that were her neurodivergence, right? She's neurodivergent is what she was saying. And she was saying you can't pray away being neurodivergent any more than I can pray away needing glasses to see, right? I could possibly get LASIK surgery, but and you could do a little shaky plea deal to say, well, you got LASIK surgery and you prayed to not have glasses, the prayer was answered. But you don't have any evidence that it was the prayer. You don't have any evidence other than what it really obviously is, that my eyes are bad without my contact lenses or my glasses, so therefore I needed LASIK surgery to fix them if I had the money to do that. The point being, when you're taking behaviors and you're saying this is what makes an alcoholic, and you have no evidence for there being an alcoholic, but I have a medication over here, and I have scientific studies that show that these receptors in the brain, when they're altered due to medication, the desire to abuse alcohol goes away, just like the desire to binge on food goes away, implying this is a biological thing, implying that this is as biologically a part the human experience as people who are left-handed, okay, or something like that. Like a long time ago, if you were left-handed, by the way, I am actually right-handed, so, but a long time ago, if you were left-handed, you could get punished for that, right? Left-handed people have something wrong with them. If you're left-handed, it's disturbing. There's something wrong with your brain. You know, some religious institutions even looked upon that as being an omen from God himself. Well, you know what happened to him? He was born left-handed. I don't know. If we give this guy a real close haircut up here, is there a 666 on him somewhere? Because he's fucking left-handed. We now know there's nothing really bizarre. There's nothing really to be found for someone who is left-handed. A person's left-handed because they're left-handed. Has nothing to do with a character defect, has nothing to do with something spiritual, it has nothing to do with some defect in the brain that makes them less than right-handed people. There's just a part of the brain that makes some people left-handed, just like I'm right-handed. The same thing was done with epilepsy a long, long time ago. They treated it like demonic possession, but then we discovered that there were biological components in play for why people are epileptic. You know what? We've never discovered that there's any evidence that they were possessed. Now, you can narrow the gap and still use that gap. Well, we don't know where epilepsy truly comes from, though, do we? So it could be a demon, couldn't it? Yeah, but that window, that gap keeps getting smaller. You see, it's the same thing with the real alcoholic thing. Like when someone takes naltrexone and they stop problem drinking, they just weren't a real alcoholic to begin with. Well, what's a real alcoholic? And then they're going to quote you some shit from the big book. But you notice their definition of real alcoholic keeps getting smaller over time. It has to keep getting smaller over time because the more science finds out, the less inclined we are to believe that there's some spiritual made-up disease that the spirit of the universe has to relieve you from that comes from what's outside of your mind. Because everything that we found so far for prediction indicates it's coming from the brain itself. Just like a long time ago, when people would say, I don't know where lightning comes from, I don't know where thunder comes from, I don't know why the earth shakes underneath my feet, has to be a mystical thing. It has to be a spiritual thing. It has to be a punishment from a god. It has to be this. It has to be that. And yet the more we discover, we find out that lightning isn't from some mystical source out of nowhere. We find out that earthquakes are not some mystical thing that cannot be explained or understood. We find out that the window for superstition gets a little smaller each time because there's a natural explanation behind everything. So if there's a natural explanation behind problem drinking, you could keep on arguing this bullshit no true Scotsman special plead that there's this tiny little percentage of the population that are real alcoholics, and those are the only people God cares about, which is really strange to me too, because your higher power spirit of the universe, not spirit of the universe, although that would be a good name for it, the spirit of the universe, only answers the prayers of people who are real alcoholic. Everybody else can just die. I used to see this in AA all the time. Well, I'll tell you why there's so many failure rates in AA today. It's the fucking drug addicts. It's the treatment center people. It's the drug courts. It's because people haven't bottomed out enough. It's because too many alcoholics get here prematurely. That's why it's failing. You see, the first 100 people, oh, wait a minute, there was no first 100 people. And out of that first 40 people, we don't even know how many of those actually stayed successfully quit because Bill removed all their stories when the second edition of the Big Book rolled around. Let's not also forget the fact that AA wanted it the way they wanted it for a long period of time. You had to be a real alcoholic to come to AA, right? And that's why by the 1960s it had all but evaporated. If it hadn't been for Marty Mann turning this thing into an institution that she turned it into, AA wouldn't be around hardly. I don't think it would have made it past the 1960s. It was all but dead at that time, according to what I've been able to read and find. Bill W. was still making a nice little fat sum of money off of it till he died, as there's always going to be a tiny little group of people that will fund the cult religion. There was even a group, there's a lady named Summer Sanchez who does true crime stuff. If you're ever interested in hearing about disturbing case histories with cults, in fact, she does one on the Synon cult. She was talking about this cult called The Work. Yeah, that was the name, The Work, in Connecticut. And they're still in existence today, even though their leader was involved in murder and killing and all kinds of nefarious, disgusting things. There's still a group of people out there called The Work. Just like there would have probably persisted to be a tiny little religious cult called Quackaholics Anonymous, but it would have never been the institution that it became had it not been for Marty Mann. Just imagine if AA had never become an institution, we might have actually had real support groups where people could help each other with their addiction, rather than get cult religion involved in it. And the really strange thing about that, because that is what created the cookie cutter program that we've got today for everybody. You got an overeating problem? The 12 steps. You got a problem with shoplifting? The 12 steps. You got a problem with this? The 12 steps. Strangely enough, there was other people have commented on this channel and subscribers. There was one lady that was talking to me on here 3 or 4 years ago now it's been, but she was talking about OA, Overeaters Anonymous. And it's no surprise, but the same toxic behavior, the same toxic traits, the same bullying, the same gaslighting, all that kind of shit. It's almost like the 12 steps makes people worse people, if you really think about it, for a long period of time. But there is the window for the 12-step cult religion keeps narrowing. They can keep re-releasing books, and they can keep redefining terms, and they can keep saying things like, the reason that this naltrexone is taken off is because you're not a real alcoholic. So the real reason that science is advancing and cult religion is staying the same is because we're just going to redefine the terms to mean something completely different each and every single time. That's what we're going to do, right? We're going to... And by the way, the people who hate the treatment centers and who hate the drug addicts and all that other kind of stuff, if you took all that out of AA would truly be gone. It's the treatment center industry that keeps AA going, but I swear to you, every time you go to an AA meeting, there's got to be that one fucking guru that's going to sit there and he's going to say, well, when I got here, there wasn't treatment center people here everywhere. All these people in treatment, they don't want to really get sober. Oh, wait a minute, a couple of them over there are attractive. See me after the meeting. I'm going to get your personal phone number, and I'm going to be the place you're going to live when you get out of treatment because I care about saving lives. Oh, yeah, back to my script. All you treatment center people, you're all going to die. You're all going to die, every one of you. Yeah, without him, AA would be gone. So let's take treatment out of AA. Let's AA die the death it really deserves. Anyway, I think I've kind of made all the point I could make for this particular week in this particular video. Like I said, I don't have my notes, so I can't go into the scientific details about the receptors and hormones and all that other kind of stuff that goes on in the brain. But think about it. If something can be cured by medicine, lessened by medicine, then it's got to have a biological cause. You can't give someone medicine for something that exists outside of the brain, can you? So you can't treat addictive behavior, which comes from the brain. It comes from our own psychologies. It comes from our own self. You can't treat it with something outside of the brain. Seems logically consistent to me. Let me know what you think in the comments. See you guys next week.